Look at the teeth on this skull. They are perfectly straight, incredibly strong, and noticeably white. This person lived 8,000 years ago as a hunter-gatherer, millennia before the invention of toothbrushes, floss, or modern dentistry. Now look at this one. This skull is only 500 years old, from the medieval era, and the teeth are in a state of extreme decay and loss. This is not an isolated strange case. Skeletal records across the board show a steep historical decline in human oral health. Today, to combat this modern decay and chase that ancestral standard of a perfectly white smile, we spend heavily. The dental care industry has swelled to $39 billion, and a massive chunk of that is dedicated entirely to fixing an increasingly unnatural problem. To get there, consumers buy into an endless cycle of marketing gimmicks. We use heavily abrasive pastes and overly marketed blue LED kits to scrub away the yellow, despite warnings from dentists that these physical abrasives actually erode the tooth over time. To actually restore our teeth, we need to stop scrubbing at the surface symptom. We have to look at the evolutionary timeline and the microscopic chemistry to understand exactly why our teeth are turning yellow in the first place. The first major biological shift happened roughly 10,000 years ago during the agricultural revolution. For millions of years, humans relied on hard, fibrous foods like wild game and tough roots. Suddenly, we settled down and began farming soft carbohydrates like wheat and barley. Evolution operates on a strict use it or lose it principle. Because we were no longer vigorously chewing tough, fibrous foods, our jawbones didn't need to be as wide or robust. Over generations, human jaws physically narrowed, leaving less room for the teeth, resulting in the structural crowding and overlapping we see today. The second major blow arrived in the 19th century with the Industrial Revolution. Mass production facilities suddenly made refined sugar and highly processed flour cheap, accessible, and an everyday staple in the human diet. These refined sugars and soft carbohydrates provided a massive new food source for the microbes in our bodies. The human mouth hosts over 700 distinct species of bacteria, and this sudden influx of sugar aggressively favored the populations that cause decay. By feeding these specific microbial colonies, we engineered a highly toxic oral environment, a constant, localized acidic attack on the structure of our teeth. When you eat a soft piece of bread or a sugary dessert, it sticks easily between your teeth. The bad bacteria that thrive on that sugar quickly consume it, multiplying rapidly to form thick, sticky colonies known as biofilms. As these bacterial colonies digest the sugars, they excrete a highly corrosive byproduct directly onto your teeth, lactic acid. This continuous acid exposure has two immediate effects. First, it slowly dissolves the outer, translucent layer of the tooth, called the enamel. As the enamel thins, the dense, naturally yellowish layer underneath, the dentin, becomes highly visible. Second, the acid physically alters whatever enamel remains. It eats away the smooth surface, creating jagged, microscopic craters and deep pores across the outside of the tooth. Now, whenever you consume dark pigmented foods, things like coffee, colas, or red wine, the dark chemical compounds in those liquids, called chromogens, fall directly into these microscopic craters and wedge themselves tightly inside. This is why most commercial whitening toothpastes fail to whiten teeth. They rely on abrasive particles like silica to physically scratch off surface plaque, but they are too large to reach the chromogens deeply buried inside the enamel's pores. You can scrub until you are exhausted, but physical abrasion is scientifically useless against a stain trapped at the microscopic level. To actually remove it, you need a chemical reaction. The scientific gold standard for true stain removal is chemical bleaching, primarily using agents like hydrogen peroxide or carbamide peroxide. When applied to the teeth, these peroxide solutions break down and release highly reactive oxygen molecules. Because these molecules are so incredibly small, they easily dive deep into the microscopic pores of the enamel. Once inside, the oxygen acts like a microscopic bomb. It violently collides with the trapped chromogens, chemically oxidizing the pigment clumps. It shatters the dark molecules into fragments so small they essentially become invisible. The concentration of the peroxide determines the results. Over-the-counter whitening strips use a weaker solution and can safely lift your teeth 2 to 5 shades. Dentists, on the other hand, can apply a highly concentrated 40% hydrogen peroxide gel in a clinical setting, lifting the color up to 10 shades. Targeted chemical oxidation is the only scientifically valid method to reverse organic staining without physically destroying the tooth's outer structure. There is one biological exception. Chemical bleaching only works on external stains trapped in the enamel. It is entirely useless for teeth discolored from internal trauma, like a physical impact that bursts blood vessels deep within the inner dentin layer. When blood oxidizes deep inside the tooth, or when the discoloration is rooted in genetics, the only functional solution is a cosmetic veneer, an artificial porcelain or composite cap placed entirely over the tooth. For the rest of us, the best defense is managing our daily habits. You have to watch out for the deadly triad of trigger foods, items that are highly acidic, loaded with sugar, and full of dark pigments. If you do consume triggers, make it a habit to aggressively rinse your mouth with plain water immediately afterward. This rapidly dilutes the oral environment, neutralizing the acid before it can dissolve the enamel and open up those microscopic pores. We have the chemical tools to rescue stained teeth, but naturally white teeth our ancestors enjoyed.